Hello, this is Dr. Briscoe here. I'm a teacher at Suncoast Community High School in Riviera Beach, Florida. We're on topic 2.5, checks on the presidency, and we're on video 2, where we'll be looking at the president's policy initiatives and the use of executive orders and how those can lead to some conflicts with what Congress wants to do. So we have our lesson overview here, and we've got our topic overview here, and our task is to explain how policy initiatives and executive orders often lead to conflict with the congressional agenda. So what will we learn? You'll be able to answer the following questions. What type of policy initiatives and executive orders by the president lead to conflict with the congressional agenda, and how can those conflicts be resolved? All right, so we have describe as our task verb here for this particular topic. And because the legislative and executive branches are self-interested, the enactment of policy can cause controversy, of course. And then if they are from two different parties, then that can be even a bigger cause for controversy. This is a very interesting graphic here. Basically, it's showing when presidents, through either a State of the Union address or some joint session of Congress, where they say, I want you to do this, and whether or not the Congress is able to fulfill that request within 1 year. So this is very interesting. We've got here, would be the congressional responses here in fulfilling those requests. And we can see that presidents a lot of times don't get what they want. We don't know from this graphic what the parties are, what the party makeup is of Congress, but just very, very interesting. And a lot of factors depending on who the president is and what kinds of things are going on in society at that time. All right, so we know that only members of Congress can make policy. The president has policy initiatives, and they're going to rely on members of the party in Congress to help them fulfill that initiative. And so they will have sponsors that will put in the legislation, and there are things, though, that the president can't control, and all the members, even if they're supportive of the president, cannot control. Bills be altered, marked up, and there's nothing that can be done about that, and it may come out the other side not looking exactly the way that the president wanted. All right, just a question here about looking at the data and what inferences you can make about the relationship between Congress and the president with policy agendas. Like I said, we'd need a little bit more information, but could say generally that they're not getting, everything they want, even half of the time. All right, so we've got this graphic here again with the legislative checks on the executive branch. And just think for a minute about ways that the president can bypass the will of Congress and do something that just kind of takes them out of the picture. So here we've got one of these word graphics here, and we've got a lawsuit that would be going to the courts, using the bully pulpit, the pocket veto, executive orders, recess appointments, the veto. So there are a number of ways that the president can have an impact. And you see some of the smaller things there, like leaking information and things, refusing to cooperate with oversight. So the executive and legislative branches can call on the judicial branch to help, make a decision when there is a conflict. Every time that's not going to be a choice that can be made. And of course, even after the ruling is made, one side is not going to be happy with that ruling. So even if they can resolve the conflicts, then both branches want to have some influence on who sits on the court. We talked last time about the president and the long lasting influence of members that are put on the court and can serve for decades and decades. And when there's divided government, we're going to find that Congress is probably going to want someone different than the president in terms of fulfilling those vacancies, particularly on the Supreme Court. So let's practice. We've got here, after the 2008 election, Obama appointed Rahm Emanuel to lead the White House as chief of staff. That drew criticism from Republican leaders, including John Boehner, who was the House Minority Leader at that time. And he said, oh, it was ironic that you said that you were going to change Washington, but then you bring in somebody that is known to be aggressive and not necessarily willing to compromise. So what of the following explains how Congress could legitimately respond to the appointment? That would be they can't do anything. They just, yeah, they can write a statement and it'll go in a file somewhere. But yeah, they don't get to have any input on those White House staff positions. But, it's an opportunity to voice themselves and, have something to say, but no formal power to block that. All right, even with large majorities of their own in Congress, presidents experience difficulty in exercising legislative leadership because parties are weak in terms of being together against a president versus being together for something that they want. So the president can say, okay, I want you to do this, that, or the other members of my party, but they may not necessarily go along with it. They may not be in a leadership position to see that that happens, or the legislation, even though sponsored, could end up to be marked up and changed in such a way that it does not benefit the president. All right, so what should we take away? We can answer the question, what type of policy initiatives and orders by the president lead to conflict? And if there's divided government, those are going to be the ones that lead to conflict. And presidents can issue executive orders to bypass Congress, and that can make them pretty unhappy. But does it sometimes when Congress is not moving? Maybe there is something that needs to be done right away, or the president says it needs to be done, and so he's going to go ahead and do that. In the case of an executive order, if it's something Congress opposes, they might try to get the court involved and say, well, we think that that action is unconstitutional. Some of those cases that do get to the court have been ruled in favor of the president, other in favor of Congress. So it just depends on the question and the composition of the court. So we're back where we started, explaining policy initiatives and executive orders and conflict. And that is the end of this video. Thank you. See you next time.